Hi, welcome back. This is a continuation of lecture number 5 for Latin America. So this is technically lecture 5B for Latin America. And we just started talking about Brazil in our last lecture. In the first part of lecture number 5, I actually started talking about Argentina and how it was a textbook example of some of the political turmoil or upheavals that people in Latin America have faced over the years with dictatorships, socialist regimes, totalitarian forms of government. And at the end of that lecture, I started to talk about Brazil. So I'm going to talk now about Brazil and how it's a textbook example of some of the economic growth that we're starting to see in many countries in Latin America. All right? Okay, so the fastest growing nation in Latin America today is Brazil. With over 162 million people, they have the 5th largest nation in the world. Brazil has one of the most diverse populations in Latin America, including the largest population of Japanese people living outside of Japan, believe it or not. Perhaps the most notable characteristic of Brazil today is social inequality. Brazil is a land of extremes. Their rich enjoy a way of life on par or surpassing those of industrialized nations. However, millions of people live in grinding poverty. Brazil has experienced massive economic growth, sometimes called the Brazil Miracle. The Brazil Miracle entailed the development of many new industries and massive foreign investment. Brazil's economy is currently in the world's top 10. Unlike many Latin American nations, their economy is no longer dependent on a single cash crop. The development of new industries has greatly helped Brazil make economic progress. But there are still many challenges in Brazil despite this progress. One, they have many foreign debts, which has caused the government to cut back on domestic spending or what they spend for programs that benefit citizens within their own nation. This has made some of the glaring differences between the rich and poor even more apparent. Secondly, with a growing population, Brazil has tried to get people to move to more remote regions to ease the strain on its cities. This has resulted in lots of construction and development in the Amazon basin and the subsequent destruction of parts of the rainforest. Although this development has helped Brazil's economy, it has resulted in lots of environmental damage. In some areas, desertification has occurred. Many parts of the rainforest have been cut down, which many believe contributes to global warming. Finally, there has been lots of investment in Latin America over the years by the United States. This investment has had positive and negative effects on Latin America over time. So now that I've talked about Brazil, I'm going to talk about the U.S.'s role in Latin America over the years. And that it's changed over the years, especially when we entered the Cold War period. So we'll get to all of that. All right, so this investment has definitely had positive and negative results on Latin America over time. The realization of manifest destiny and expansionism under President James Monroe's Monroe Doctrine resulted in an increase in U.S. presence throughout Latin America. This expansion started with the Mexican War in 1845, which resulted in the U.S. gaining what had been almost half of Mexico's territory. This soured our relationship with Mexico for many years. The U.S. furthered its influence in Latin America after the Spanish-American War in 1898. Remember learning about that last year as 8th graders? This resulted in the loss of Spanish territory to the U.S. The U.S. gained both Puerto Rico and the Philippines as territories. And under the Platt Amendment, it also gave the U.S. the ability to intervene in Cuban affairs as well. So you're going to learn more about all of these in the 11th grade. Well, the U.S. has also had a mixed relationship with other Latin American nations, including Panama. Interested in building a canal across the isthmus of land and taking over the failed French operation, the U.S. tried to buy this area from Colombia for $10 million. Colombia rejected the offer, so we essentially helped the Panamanians rebel against Colombia, and we helped them to secure their independence using something called gunboat diplomacy. Remember that term from our Japan unit? We then forced them to allow us to build a canal there by threatening to leave, making them vulnerable to attack and takeover by the Colombians. They were essentially forced to sign an unequal treaty with the U.S. that gave the U.S. control over the Panama Canal. The U.S. remained in control over the canal until December 31st, 1999. But the Panama Canal is incredibly important in terms of world trade, and we see thousands of ships passing through there every year. All right. Additionally, during the Cold War, Latin America was a place where many of our showdowns with the Soviet Union occurred. Many of these nations became proxy nations for our conflict with the USSR. The most notable of these conflicts was, well, they occurred in Cuba, which had become a communist totalitarian state following a revolution in 1959 and under the leadership of Fidel Castro. In 1961, using U.S.-trained Cuban exiles, we tried to overthrow Fidel Castro. Unfortunately, Castro was tipped off to this invasion, and the exiles were slaughtered on the beach by Castro's troops. This bloodbath became known as the Bay of Pigs incident, and it was a failure in terms of U.S. foreign policy during the Cold War. In October of 1962, Cuba became a proxy state for a nuclear showdown between the U.S. and the USSR. Castro allowed the Soviets to build missile bases in Cuba and arm them with atomic weapons. This concerned the U.S. because a nuclear strike on the U.S. from Cuba, which is only 90 miles away from Florida, would have been quickly devastating. We responded by setting up a blockade of ships to prevent delivery of atomic weapons. The resulting showdown is now referred to as the Cuban Missile Crisis and brought the U.S. and USSR close to nuclear war. This type of showdown during the Cold War is often referred to as brinkmanship because we pushed an already dangerous event to the brink of disaster. Fortunately, through diplomacy, we managed to prevent a nuclear holocaust. Since 1962, we have had an embargo on Cuba. A trade embargo is where a country refuses to allow its citizens to trade or do business with another nation. Under our embargo with Cuba, we don't sell them any of our products or buy any of theirs. This embargo has really hurt the Cuban economy over the years. Many people wonder how much longer Cuba's command economy can last. As of 2010, Raul Castro, Fidel's brother, has been in power due to Fidel's ailing health. All right, and that's everything. Enjoy. Thanks for listening. Bye.